Well, the week has finally come. Hollow Knight Silksong is almost here, and the closer we get, more information is coming out. We now know why the game took 7 years to develop. We know why they were silent for such a long time, why the team hasn't really grown beyond their very small size, and they confirmed not just the release date, but the price point, which is crazy if you think about it. We're going to break that all down because I was thinking the price was going to be quite a bit higher than it landed. And if this, leaked thing that we saw, which is what we heard about the price, is any indication about the industry and where it could be headed, is this game going to seemingly have that kind of an impact? But are gamers and those in the industry learning the wrong lesson here? Is this one game in studio by itself an indictment of how most of the industry functions, from its marketing to budgets to timelines? Many are left wondering if the Silksong effect will change the gaming landscape as we know it. I'll discuss that later in the show with a timestamp. Sometimes I don't do that, so if you guys are coming back and you're like, hey, where are the timestamps? Sometimes there aren't timestamps. There will be ones for this show, so if they're not there, remind me in the comments, because I will be doing some gameplay of Hollow Knight after this. The first game, I want to give people that Hollow Knight gameplay in 2025 treatment. We did that with Returnal. We did that with Death Stranding 1. I want to kind of help people get into that game if they feel like playing that one first before the new game. But we have some other stories as well. Bungie is apparently paying people to help test and play Marathon. Yes, you heard that correctly. We're going to look at the optics on that. And secondly, Lost Soul aside, one of the first more major titles coming out from the PlayStation China Hero project appears to be flopping and not doing very well after playing the demo. And I actually played the game on launch date as well, hoping the day one patch would help. It's just not in a great place. We're going to look at some of the revealed details about how that game's development went and why the game is hopefully going to be able to get back into a better place. Now, again, all that'll be later in the show. If you're watching this later and you like the show, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Make sure that you have hit like. If you want to get into the extra content, we now start every day. We brought morning coffee back. If you want to start the day with me and have that longer show, hit join and pick Member Plus. That supports the channel directly. That's how I do this full time. And as always, we are here Monday through Friday, not just with talk shows, but with gameplay, and there is a state of play from PlayStation this week with the James Bond 007 First Light game. We will definitely be checking that out. That is on Wednesday. So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Make sure you guys are going through the ritual. Make sure you're going through the ritual of hitting the like button. Lightleap says, what's the better split for you, Twitch or YouTube? Presently, YouTube is the better split. It doesn't matter to me. I've continued to tell people wherever you want to support. September is going on right now on Purple, and that's a great time to kind of go crazy. And then obviously on YouTube, really what we're trying to foster on YouTube is people picking Member Plus and above. That is the big thing that we need right now. It's pretty safe to say that Hollow Knight Silksong is undoubtedly going to be going to be a Game of the Year contender. It's definitely going to challenge Expedition 33 for sure. I don't think it can challenge Expedition 33 in a real sense. I think from a dialogue perspective, like as far as like the gaming industry and culture talking about a game, I certainly think Hollow Knight is going to land in a great spot. I don't think anything can beat Expedition 33. I really don't think so. There's just something about that game that I think is very, very special. Yes, I saw Laura Fryer's video about Silksong. I thought it was very good. I'm going to include some of the information that she had in there about Splitgate in my talk later in this show about the Silksong effect. What people are now sort of thinking that, like, well, any small studio can do that. Any small studio can do what Hollow Knight did. We need to be careful we're not learning the wrong lessons here. Kojima Productions announces a 10th anniversary celebration beyond the Strand in Tokyo, Japan. A live stream on September the 23rd. The celebratory event will include special guest appearances as well as offer a glimpse into future projects. Very cool. What's up with these games releasing unfinished? Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen with the 007 game. I really hope not. Obviously, given the pedigree of the team behind it, as well as the fact that they have 30 minutes of gameplay to show and the game's not even coming out until next year. So that would be my hope, is that, you know, if they're able to show 30 minutes of gameplay in September of 2025 and the game's not coming out until next year, hopefully then they've got a quality piece of, you know, a quality product there. I'm playing through Lost Soul Aside, said Jack Garland. I get the gameplay and I'm enjoying it, but there's a lot of moments that make the game hard to defend. So basically, Lost Soul Aside doesn't have a great score anywhere. It has arguably a bad score on Steam. It has a continually dropping score on PlayStation, which I told people that would likely happen. And then on Metacritic, it got pretty lamb-based. It got hurt. It doesn't look good. And it's not surprising to me. It just doesn't. I just kept coming back to it doesn't feel good. It just doesn't. Rent is due. Top reply comes in with 29 months. Han shot first, and so did you. Well, not really. I mean, we already have some members on here from Morning Coffee, but we're going to count that as the Han shot first in the public stream. Thank you so much. Every 25 I gift back, so get us that first milestone, boys. It's amazing as a game made by one person and bolstered by Sony, but as a $60 high-profile release, it falls short. Well, it's no longer made by one person. They brought in quite a bit of people, and the timeline's showing that it was like basically rebooted at one point, which we all know what that means. You know, we all know what that means. It means that they the game's been through the ringer, right? And Top Reply with a tier 3 over there on Twitch for 22 months. Thank you so much. I greatly appreciate it, man. Welcome back in, and that gets us to 12 on the week. Thank you so much, sir. I want it noted for the record that Hollow Knight and Silksong are $3 indies. I'm not sure what you mean by that. I thought the lesson was if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Oh, in the realm of like the price. I mean, the issue though is anytime you have a very successful game like Hollow Knight Silksong or like Expedition 33, people want to do this weaponization thing where they talk about like, well, small teams are going to save us, Eastern developers are going to save us. I think it's pretty clear after Wu Chang Fallen Feathers and Lost Soul Aside, people really overstated their case. We've got games coming out of China, we've got games coming from small studios that are not delivering the greatness that everybody thought was going to happen, because you have to handle these situations as a case-by-case basis. There is no, direct correlation between like, yeah, Western studios suck, AAA games suck, Eastern devs are better, and and smaller teams are better. I mean, no, and I kept telling people that. I'm like, if you look at the overwhelming number of smaller teams that deliver, hundreds of thousands of games a year, and how many of them are terrible, I think people were just like overstating their case. Wu Chang's way better than Lost Soul. Yeah, but Wu Chang also doesn't have the greatest score because it didn't run all that well. It's an ugly game with respect to performance on console, and it had issues on PC. So again, you're talking about a game that was like hailed as like, oh, yeah, here comes another Eastern dev going to save us. Here comes another smaller team going to save us. Game really didn't ship at quality. You know what I'm saying? 38 months from XCal. Thank you so much over here for Team Purple. Thank you so much. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't, if you go look at it, Wu Chang's score on PC, I mean, it clearly displays something that I've been talking about, and it's like, you can't just act like, well, if a game is a small team or they're not Western, it's automatically going to be good. And it's like, that is too simplistic, and it's driven by, I think it's more driven by a false narrative than analysis. It's driven by this idea that like AAA games suck and all AAA Western developers are going woke or whatever. And I don't think that dialogue is true. And I think it's withering very quickly this year. And I think it's hard for any of that narrative or any of that argumentation to get footing when you have games like Wu Chang and when you have games like Lost Soul Aside. These games should have been amazing, according to a lot of the argumentation that we heard this year. Arc Raiders will be legendary if it drops on PS5 for sure. The style of gameplay is unmatched. I don't know what you mean by if it drops on PS5. I played it on my PS5 in the beta. I'm not sure what you mean. I don't think they're planning on limiting the release of it. At least they've not said that. All the games I've been looking forward to the most have been coming up a little short lately. What games are those? Guys, try to get us to the first 100 likes as well. I appreciate you guys so much. We're at 54 likes on the day. Not everything can be Stellar Blade. Yeah, but even Stellar Blade, as fun as it was, and as much as people praised it, I mean, it sold reasonably well on PlayStation, and then it sold well on PC. But again, it's case by case. Like, every game is different. Every game is going to hit at a particular time. Every game is going to hit, in a particular, vibe and feel within the culture and what people are looking for. You know what I mean? Eastern devs still have way more hits than misses, though. What you're saying hasn't been substantiated. You'd have to add up every single Eastern dev game that comes out every single year. And to argue what you're arguing is so mathematically impossible. There's no... With the number of games that come out, go to Steam right now and just filter to just Japanese and Chinese games only. Just filter just those games that come out every single day, every single month, and look at how many of them are terrible. Like, there's no way mathematically you could say, oh yeah, they're getting more wins, they're getting more hits than misses. The overwhelming majority of games that come out are misses that are terrible. Just Steam is an ocean of that. It's an absolute ocean. If you used any of those database tools to see like what's coming out, there's a lot of slop in the MMO genre. There's a lot of slop in the gacha genre. They'll claim it's an open world action RPG and it's just some gacha piece of trash. Like, it is not. I'm telling you, people always want to turn subjects into tribalism. Oh, well, they're better and they're doing better and they got more hits than misses. No, they don't. What are you talking about? Are you counting foreign language only games? There are billions of them. Yeah, like, just filter games on Steam that are just coming from Chinese or Japanese or Korean devs. There's an ocean of games coming out all the time from Eastern developers that they're not even worth talking about. Like, that's what I'm saying. You and your gacha hate, it's not hate, it's criticism of what I think to be terrible monetization practices. If you like gacha, great, but if you classify criticism as hate, that's your own personal definition that I think is devoid of any intelligence. Like, it's not hate to say that gacha monetization is bad. That's a criticism of it. It's like, hate is usually driven by something completely different than, actual criticism of mechanics and how things function. You know what I'm saying? Good morning for you taking the day off. What's good, legend? How are you? Happy Cookout Day. Happy Cookout Day. That's right. That's right. Gacha games to me ruin the gaming industry. Most of the anime-based games are bad too. We do Candy Crush type games. We should all hate gacha. I mean, I think classifying criticism as hate again, though, it's like I wouldn't even give in to that label. It's not hate. It isn't. It's like, hey, this is how the monetization is structured. I think this is bad. You know what I mean? Do people think just because a game comes from Asia doesn't automatically make it good? Sorry if I sound stupid, but it seems very every gamer thinks that because it's come from Asia, it's already good. Well, and that's what I'm getting at is, like, I think people have people have recently really oversimplified these discussions. Haven't spent a dime in Destiny Rising yet. Yeah, great. I could go into a casino, and order food and not spend a dime on the slot machines. But that doesn't mean that you can't be critical of, the math behind slot machines and what they do and how they basically steal money from people, right? Like, it's like you can play games and not spend money in them. That doesn't defend the monetization practices within them or the gacha systems within them. You can play Genshin Impact and never spend a dime, but that's not going to be a repudiation for, like, my criticism of the pity mechanics within their monetization. Like, that, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't care if you play any of these games and don't spend money. That doesn't have anything to do with the criticism of the actual monetization practices within them. So, great, have a ball. Don't spend within the broken system. But like, I remember that's why I wouldn't play Diablo Immortal. I was getting really good viewership playing Diablo Immortal on PC for people. And I literally thought about, I could play this game as a free-to-play player and show people how to play and not spend money. But I thought, no, I'm just perpetuating the potential player base of a game that I don't think I should, And you got to do what you got to do as a player. I'm not telling you how you should spend your time and money. I'm simply saying within the discussion of monetization practices, being critical of gacha systems, you're not refuting those criticisms or pushing back on those criticisms, being like, well, I play and don't spend money. As a major gacha player, I can say for sure that gacha is absurd, especially now that they have to show the real money equivalent. So it says with their whole chest, it can cost nearly $500 a character. Right, and I just think, I remember I was talking to my cousin about this, and he had spent an absurd amount of money in a game, right? And I was like, dude, you got to get out of there. Goodness gracious. My whole thought was, man, if you'd have taken that money and invested it, or just like gave it to somebody to be like, hey, you know what? I want you to take this money and invest it for me and try to get me some return on this. It's like, you would be so much better off than just dumping it into a game like that. Now, I'm not saying you don't have money set aside for entertainment, but it was absurd the amount of money he had spent in one player. I was like, oh my gosh. I'm sorry, not on one player. I'm saying as one player, it was absurd the amount of money that he had spent. And I was like, goodness gracious. And then you're going to turn around and have what to show for it? You know what I mean? China Hero Project, definitely game over. No, I don't think so. I think decrying the entire project is game over because one team's, project didn't come out great. I think is, again, it's just moments ago, you said that the, East had more hits than misses. I mean, the depth of interaction we're getting from you is, not great. Like, you're just sort of throwing things out there, I guess, hoping for bait, maybe. You could purchase a massive package like this one here, which bundles every ship currently available in the game for around $48,000 in Star Citizen. Is that a gacha game? No, because in Star Citizen, the way I understand it is there is an actual transaction that takes place, and you get stuff for the transaction. You're not like, hey, spend money, you might get something cool. If you spend a little bit more money, you might get something cool. Well, the more money you spend, eventually pity will kick in, so you automatically have sunk costs anytime you spend money in like a game like Genshin because of the pity mechanic. Well, what you're doing then is every dollar spent is weaponized against the person because, well, you already spent $5, $10, $15, $20. Eventually, pity's going to kick in. As I understand it, Star Citizen's not doing any of that. You buy and you get. You know what you're spending your money on, right? It would be like somebody going into, model trains, and it's really expensive. And you're like, that's absurd for little pieces of, steel, aluminum, and plastic, for your model train. Well, but they know what they're getting. They're like, no, I know what I'm getting when I buy this set of tracks or this little village or this little character. They know what they're getting. They're seeing it, and they're giving the money, and then they're receiving it. That's totally your choice. Like, that is, as a consumer, that's your choice. If you go up to Star Citizen and Star Citizen is like, here's how much money it costs for this item in our game, you're like, okay, cool, I don't want that. The issue that I always take with these like gacha systems is the latent gambling baked into it, and then the pity systems that prey on the spent money. That's always going to be my issue with it, is that you're essentially setting up a monetization structure that is designed to not deliver something to the player. It's meant to extract the highest amount of cash you can while doing so under the guise of a chance. That, to me, I don't approve of that. I think that that's bad. I think you're playing games with a person. I think what you're doing is you're manipulating the mind in order to part with cash in a way that I think is unhealthy. All marketing, all advertisement does that. They try to manipulate your mind to buy the Coca-Cola, to buy the cheeseburger, to buy the fast car. The difference is, in most of these instances, you are given the thing that you paid for. It's not like, yeah, well, you gave us this amount of money for this car, but we're going to give you a donkey instead. Like, maybe if you spend a little bit more, you might get the car. But this time you got a zebra. And it's like, wait, what the frick? Like, you would never be okay with that. Like, you would say, well, wait, hang on a minute. Well, because it's utilized in areas where nobody's really thinking in that realm, and you should. Like when my children buy the little bags and there's a toy inside of it and they don't know what's in there, every time they do it, I scold them and I say, we should never support that type of a product. I said, that is not appropriate value proposition and value transmission to the consumer. You have no idea what you're getting. Now, if they do it one time and then they never do it again, I'm like, well, who the heck cares? You got a dumb little Minecraft character. But it's designed for you to continue to go back, and then you get doubles, and then you're disappointed. And then, well, if I keep doing it, I might get the cooler character or whatever. It's the same thing. It's even infecting the toy industry. Every time we go to Target, every time we go into a toy store, they've got these stupid little chance boxes or bags where you don't know what you're getting. And I'm like, man, burn all this to the ground. This is garbage. This is not you being given a proposition of something, a good or service. In this case is a good. You're not given that. They're selling you the chance. That's where the dopamine hit comes from. It doesn't come from the actual item itself. Like, well, these are a good pair of shoes, or this is a good Nerf gun. You're getting a sense of elation from the chance, not from the item itself, which that's the problem. That's the latent issue with it. They're not selling you something. They're selling you a chemical injection in your brain that, continually gets hit every time you pull the lever. And with the sunk cost of pity, they're basically weaponizing your own money against you. Yeah. But it's gosh, I hate, And I'll get comments later from some of you guys that like these games, and you're like, you've never even given these games a chance, and you criticize them. Look, I don't need to go into a frickin' casino to know it's a dumb way to spend my money, right? You can't be like, well, you've not actually done slot machine. I don't need to. I know how it works. I know the mechanics of it. That's all I need to know to not put a quarter in the machine. You know what I'm saying? Guys, really quickly, go through the ritual of smashing the like button. It's going to be a lighter day because of the holiday, so let's do what we can to put the stream on our back and turn this into something. We also going with a little bit of a different structure. I didn't schedule the stream as long. That tends to hurt. So if you don't see the streams, and that maybe is affecting you coming to them, let me know. We're kind of experimenting with when should we schedule the stream. Scheduling them super far in advance seems really counterproductive, but maybe YouTube has updated how that functions. It seemed like it hurt us on Friday. We brought back morning coffee. That's one of the reasons why the live show, the public show, might be scheduled longer than usual. Yo, Mikey Bot comes in with 5 months. Thank you so much for renewing your membership, and that gets us to 14 on the week. When you guys hit that weekly goal, you unlock Madam on Friday night. She'll come to the show and make her play something. Yeah, you have to try heroin. Yes, yeah. You have to try hard drugs before criticizing what they do to your body. It kills me. It kills me. You need to learn about the grain drinky winky. You can slowly feed a single slot machine while getting free drinks from the casino. It's a way to make profit no matter what. Basically, the whole premise of buying Pokemon cards, trading cards in general, too. Yeah, I've had people ask me about that. Like, well, what do you think about, like, baseball cards? What do you think about Pokemon cards? Because, you're kind of doing the same thing, right? You're buying something and there's, like, a chance of getting something amazing, right? My pushback there is, and I don't have a dog in this fight to, like, defend Pokemon cards. My kids haven't ever really purchased them. They were given a bunch of doubles from friends of theirs, and then people in the stream sent a bunch of Pokemon cards to the kids through the P.O. box. But I think the difference is there. It would be unusual for you to get literally nothing of value out of it. You're still getting cards. Like, you get duplicates, obviously, but you're still getting cards that you can do something with. You could trade them with your friends. You are still going to get probably cards you've never got before. You know, I do think there's a big difference between them. I still am hesitant to have my kids buying them. Like, I usually tell them the same thing I tell them with, like, the surprise toys. I'm like, you're buying something hoping to get something good, and you don't know what it is. And that, I don't think, is a good use of your money. You know what I mean? When the new Lego minifigures come out, the kids and I head down to Wally World to get the entire set. We just scan the UPC on the app, and bingo, we get the whole set instantly. Wait, I thought the UPCs were the same. So according to always losing entitled goalpost moving Microsoft through console wars over. I'm not sure what you're saying. I don't know why you're suddenly randomly coming in and invoking that, and where nobody here is discussing that. I play Magic the Gathering. When you buy a pack, you know the whole pool of cards. You get a set amount of each card type. So if you gambled and lost everything and they gave you some Pokemon cards, is that now okay? Huh? I don't think one is better than the other personally. I think there is a spectrum of, like, bad, right? Like when they buy the little bag and you can't see in the bag. You have no idea what you're getting, right? I don't think that's quite the same as buying a pack of Pokemon cards, because that bag could give you literally the exact same character you got last time, and it's complete waste. You buy the Pokemon cards, and the odds of you getting something new and exciting, depending on your collection, is pretty good. You're still doing the same thing. You're still buying something without knowing what's inside, right? So like I said, I encourage them to not buy Pokemon cards. I'm like, you're better off saving your money and getting a Lego set or something where you know exactly what you're getting. It retains its value. You can play with it. You can put it on your shelf. You can tear it down and use the parts for something else, like another build or something like that. So I basically tell them, I said, anything that's in that lane of, like, you don't know what you're buying, I strongly discourage them from buying them. Because I'm like, that's not a proper value proposition. They're not saying, here's this thing, come buy it. Whether it's a Nerf gun, a Lego set, or a stuffed animal. Like, yep, that's the thing I want, you know. My daughter really, really likes American Girl. If American Girl was, like, selling, like, a random bag of stuff for the doll, I would say, okay, do you have nothing? Like, if it was like a random bag of stuff for the summer, so sunglasses, flip-flops, swimsuit, you know, cute little things for the doll for the summer. If she has nothing for the summer for her doll and it's a good deal, I'd be like, okay, you could do that once. You're going to get value from it. You know you're going to get a bunch of stuff, you know, for your doll for the summer. But you wouldn't want to do it multiple times, because then now you're running the risk of getting stuff that's worthless to you, right? So you have to be prudent and you have to be discerning to see, is this thing set up in a way to extract money from me over and over and over again, because I'm not going to get the thing that I want. That's how the gacha system, that's how that pull system is designed. It's designed to be low chance of the coveted thing folks want. The more money you spend, then eventually pity kicks in and you get it. So, like, you're basically being, you know, manipulated into continuing to spend. There are instances like with the Pokemon cards, or like my example with, like, American Girl. It's like, well, you know you can extract value from it, but you wouldn't do it over and over again, because if you did, then you would get into a position where you were losing money and not getting anything for it, right? Hell Is Us reviews. Yeah, they look fine. It's like a 79 to an 80. I thought it could have been a Game of the Year sleeper. I played the demo and I modified my position. I was like, yeah, I don't think so. I don't think this game is going to be in the Game of the Year running. It could get some nominations for some of the categories, but just not a game that to me feels like, top shelf. It's the combat especially just felt very rough. Could we get 13 more likes on the video, guys? We're about 30 minutes into the broadcast, and it's going to be a slower day because of the holiday. A lot of folks will not be here because they're not working today. Donkey Kong's still in the nomination list. I don't know. I feel no draw to go back to it. Madam and I played it a bunch of nights in a row, and it just got really repetitive. I know people are like, oh, it gets so much better near the end. If you play that game co-op, I would encourage you not to. It really, really sours the experience. We're having a much more fun time in Revenge of the Savage Planet, as a co-op experience. Co-op in Donkey Kong is just, it's kind of dumb. It's kind of mindless. I don't know why they didn't limit her abilities or have her doing something maybe more specific. I don't know. That has to be one of the... It's the opposite of... okay, so if you've ever played Donkey Kong side-scroller, like Donkey Kong... There was the one Donkey Kong something, Frozen something. It actually is harder with two people. It is. As a platformer, it's harder with two people. Donkey Kong Bonanza is the exact opposite. It becomes ridiculously easy with two people, to the point that it isn't even really fun. We weren't having fun anymore. Yeah, Tropical Freeze, thank you. Tropical Freeze was arguably harder with two people. Returnal, arguably harder with two people. Right? Donkey Kong Bonanza with two people, it just is a joke. It isn't fun. It's just, and obviously she could not shoot very often, but the minute we face an enemy or something that is like, oh, hang on, we got to hit this guy a couple of times, she can just go bam, 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 and then they're gone. I don't know. I think the co-op experience was a bit of a tack on, and because it was a tack on, it's not thoughtful, at all. Tropical Freeze is peak 2D Donkey Kong. Yeah, Donkey Kong in a 2D environment, it was a fun time. We were loving it, but it just got harder and harder and harder with two players. It would have been significantly easier if I was by myself. So, unfortunately, we stopped playing Donkey Kong for that reason. I'm like, this isn't fun. I'm like, we're just mindlessly destroying everything. Getting a banana, mindlessly destroying everything. Getting a fossil, mindlessly destroying everything. Getting this to buy an outfit. And, the challenge rooms were fun, because you had, platforming and stuff. But then she would just have to kind of, sit and watch. Because if she started shooting, a lot of the challenges, she'd mess me up. She'd shoot something that I needed, or she'd shoot an enemy or something, and it's like, well, not an enemy, I'm sorry. She'd shoot the enemy and then hit the ground. So, even the challenge rooms were like, okay, this is fun. Oh, and the reason it was fun is because I'd be like, you have to stop. So I would do the challenge rooms by myself. Well, that just created this very, very sharp juxtaposition in the play experience. It was like, when we're out in the open space, she's just a 50 cal machine gun nullifying all enemies and structures. And then when we get into the actual challenges, well, they're fun because she stops playing. Does that make sense? So we went back to Revenge of the Savage Planet because they added the 60 FPS performance mode, and we had a much better time with that as a co-op experience. So they can't cancel Marathon. Oh, yeah. So the news about Marathon is that they're paying people to play the recent test. And when I get into the details of what they're asking of people, it's pretty extreme. Yeah. It's pretty extreme. Yeah. But I think they should cancel Marathon. I think PlayStation launching another game that basically isn't going to do well, I think is a bad idea. I get where Herman Hulse is coming from, where he's like, we need to fail early and fail cheap on live service. I think he's correct. I think that's actually really in the lane of something that I've been saying about live service games, where they need to consider early access. get your minimum viable product into the public's hands as soon as you possibly can. Now, I know that's expensive because you got to spin up servers, but it's better to do that early on than later, right? It's better to do that early on than later, because if they would have done that with Concord, they'd have saved themselves a ton of trouble. Now, I had a bunch of people jumping on my video. We uploaded a video over the weekend, about PlayStation wanting to fail cheap and fail early. And people were like, you're lying. PlayStation lost $400 million. And it's like, no, they didn't. All of that money was from investments outside of PlayStation. And it wasn't investments just for Concord. It was investments for Firewalk. Now, I have no idea where that money went. We don't know what that money went to, but the people running with the narrative of like, yep, PlayStation lost $400 million, it's just a lie. Like, you're just saying something that isn't true. It's absurd to think that PlayStation wrote the check for something they weren't even a part of. Like, they weren't a part of those investments. They were not a part of the first round of $200 million. Firewalk went and did it before they were even owned by PlayStation. Then they did it again after they were owned by PlayStation. And they had multiple projects. They didn't just have Concord. I don't know if we're ever going to get the full story of what happened there. To me, it sounds like Firewalk had something else going on. I would even say maybe fraud, personally. Like, there could be some far more serious things going on there than just like a crappy live service game that didn't make it. When you're procuring that level of funding for a game like that, I'm like, I have no idea what y'all are doing, but there is no way that's what that studio needed for that game. There's just no way. Now, near the end, PlayStation was sending, this is from things that we've heard, right, on people close to the project, they were trying to help the game get out the door, like other studios were leaning in and helping. So the cost to purchase Firewalk and that cost of production is where Sony lost. But the $400 million, I don't know where that money frickin' went. Nobody does. All we know is that Firewalk as a studio procured that as investment, which is completely separate than your parent company paying for your operational costs. Those are not the same thing. The original Hollow Knight has now surpassed a new concurrent player peak of 70,000 on Steam. Nice. Regardless where it went, PlayStation still lost money on the development of Concord. Yeah, but now you're saying something that's not worth saying. Like, you're like, yeah, well, it doesn't matter. People are running around lying, saying they lost $400 million. And you're like, well, regardless, they lost money on the development of Concord. Like, okay. Like, what? Yes, they bought a company, thought they had a winner, and it was a freaking dud. Yes, they lost money. That doesn't justify lying to the public and creating thumbnails and titles and videos that say things that aren't true. That doesn't justify doing that. That, like, plenty of companies have lost money on titles that have come out. That doesn't mean you can just, like, make up fake things and just run with it. That's too much money for what was shown in the gameplay. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. It's like, what? I didn't see $400 million worth of anything. The money went to the lore. It had better lore than gameplay. The $400 million is a material part of the gacha. You can't just hand wave that away. How much did the studio cost? I mean, I don't remember the original acquisition details. I mean, frankly, I don't care, because we don't need to go back and be like, well, how much did they spend? It's clear they lost money. It's clear it was a blemish, and I'm relating that to the marathon topic. They don't want to do it again. Look, man, you already bought a studio and tried to ship a live service game that failed terribly, and it looked a lot like Destiny, and a lot of the devs were from Bungie. You want to walk out another title from a similar group of people and have it flop and fail? I lost a lot of respect for Colin Moriarty there. The story was bogus. Why would you lose respect for Colin? Colin did not say any of the things that people are saying. People are using what he said and falsely representing it. Colin never once said the $400 million came from Sony. He was clear that it didn't. It was clear that it didn't come from Sony. The money is always complete bollocks. Before Halo Infinite launch, I saw people saying they spent $500 million. Yeah, I don't know where that total ever came from, Hilly. I don't. What about the director leaving? People leave all the time. I mean, if you're talking about fair games, come on. I tried to tell people. Colin said Concord cost $400 million. It did not. Where did he say that? Find the clip where Colin said that, because I got news for you. He didn't say that. I watched the episode in question, and he did not say that. That is false. He never once uttered the sentence that Concord cost $400 million. He talked about how Firewalk as a studio procured $200 million in investment. Jerry Jones was a part of that first investment, by the way. Like, Jerry Jones, Cowboys, Jerry Jones, he was a part of the first $200 million. Then there was a second round of investment of $200 million. He never once said Concord costs $400 million. He never once said that. He was speaking about Firewalk as a studio procuring investment. He did not say what you're claiming that he said. It was attributed to him that that's how much Concord cost, but that is not what he said. Traded Michael Parsons, Jerry Jones? This is correct. That Jerry Jones. And Stone Spire is setting up a 10 bomb. We haven't hit a milestone yet. We're 15 on 25. I owe a member. We'll see who's the first to claim it, whether it's Purple or YouTube. They were working on multiple projects. Remember, there was a Concord secret level on Prime. Firewalk was working on multiple projects. Yeah, we don't even know. We don't even know how they procured that level of funding. I want you to imagine how on earth they got that much funding. According to Icon Era, $200 million was the budget on Concord. I have not seen a single reputable source make that claim. I've not seen a single outlet claim that the budget for Concord was $200 million. Now, if it was, that money didn't come from PlayStation because they got $200 million in funding, and then they got another $200 million in funding. So even if for some, I don't know how you do this, but let's say they burned through $200 million on Concord. Let's just say they did. That wasn't PlayStation's money. That was from investment. That was from that first round of $200 million. They got that investment before they were even owned by PlayStation. Killian Red, that's a good beer. Thank you so much for bumping the line by one. It is 10-6, and that gets us to 16 on the week. Thank you very much. And a single comes in from Haseo and takes it to 17. It's now 10-7 in the battle. First to 25, whoever makes it, hit it. I gift your platform a member. It was in what Probably Monsters described as the largest Series A round for video game development. The company now has $250 million at its disposal. It announced in September 2021 that it had already raised $200 million, and it has now clearly allocated more funding. They already had signed a deal before buying them to publish and design a new FPS. Also, it was Probably Monsters doing them funding rounds. It wasn't all Firewalk Studios. Yeah, this money came from all sorts of places, and the $400 million did not come from PlayStation. This is why I've said I think there might have been something else going on. Like if all of a sudden in 6 months, 8 months, there's an investigation and we find out there was some shenanigans going on at Probably Monsters or Firewalk, wouldn't shock me in the least if there was some kind of shenanigans going on. Where they're out here. How in the world do you get that much funding with and all you've got really to show for it is Concord? How did you get that many people to give you that level of money? What the heck? How's it even possible? Now again, they did this in 2021. Right? They had already raised. In 2021, they had already raised the $200 million. Around that time, I think they were taking advantage of everybody was seeing dollar signs because of COVID. They had 3 teams at that point also. Yeah, I think in 2020 and 2021, I think investors saw dollar signs. I think Herman Hulst saw dollar signs. I think they got completely bamboozled. They were like, oh yeah, we're going to make a ton of money. Look at the player numbers of these games. Look at the potential of these games. And then the game comes out and it's like, no. IGN corroborates. As I said, I have not seen a single reputable source claiming that the $200 million was the budget. Even if it was the budget, it didn't come from PlayStation. PlayStation did not send or spend $200 million on Concord. That is false. That's been the issue about this discussion since the very beginning. People don't understand the business world of gaming and they try to speak on it. And when they do, they make ridiculous claims because they don't understand what they're talking about. Like a company getting over $200 million in funding and then doing it again and also being purchased by PlayStation, like those things are separate. Those are separate. Like PlayStation's not like writing a check for $200 million and being like, here you go, Johnny, build a great game for us. That's not what happened. And yet that's what many people believe. This is one of the reasons why, and this is relative to Bungie Marathon, because Herman Hulst recently said like, oh, we want to fail early and fail cheaply. And people are like, what in the frick? How are you failing early and cheaply, losing $400 million on Concord? And it's because they didn't. They didn't. So they're talking about their own investments. Yes, they've increased their investment in live service quite a bit. Yes, they've lost money on those investments. Not all of them. They made a killing. They made an absolute killer return on Helldivers 2. They're likely going to make a very strong return on Marvel Tokone Fighting Souls. They've made great returns on MLB The Show. They've made great returns on Gran Turismo 7. They did not make any return on Concord. This is definitely true. They're not going to make a return on Fair Games. I think that thing's dead on arrival. I think they should just cancel it. Right. Now, they didn't fund Marathon. Marathon is being published by Bungie and was already in production prior to acquisition. But that's going to be, I think, another blemish on their live service efforts. I think it's going to make people hesitant to think, oh, yeah, PlayStation can launch live service games. Kill Baby Steps. I don't think Baby Steps is a live service game. It's whatever the price of this deal was, plus ended up buying the dev and the IP at a later date. Yeah, I don't know what those acquisition costs were. Like, the point of me bringing up Concord was you've already walked out into the public with something that people said wasn't going to work, and you did it anyway. And you're going to do the same thing with Marathon. And you're going to do the same thing with Fair Games if you don't cancel Fair Games. You're going to launch something that everybody is saying, like, nobody wants this. Cancel Marathon, allocate resources for Destiny 3. Herman was thinking Concord would be like Star Wars. That was not something that he thought. That was something Firewalk thought. Firewalk was selling the idea that the game was going to be that popular. Like, it was like, oh yeah, this is going to be incredible. And again, you got to think, in 2020 and 2021, these guys are talking a big game. They're industry veterans. You got some foundational dudes from Destiny, and they're like, yeah, look at how great Destiny's doing. That's where we're from. This is what we've built. We think this thing has the potential to be massively popular. And maybe if they were able to ship it in 2020 or 2021, it may have stood a chance. But when it showed up in 2024, it was like, there isn't anybody. There's no market for this. There's no player base for this game. I don't know what you guys were thinking. Like, Fair Games is being rebooted. We don't have any proof of that. We have a claim from Detective Seeds it's being rebooted to be like a looter. I've not seen that claimed anywhere else. And then we just saw another person leave. I don't know why people are being critical of a CGI trailer. It's not even being representative of the actual game. Gamers just want to hate stuff. So, Corey, you've watched me for a long time. You think I just want to hate Fair Games? You don't think that I think the game's going to fail based off of information, observation of the industry, response to the details we've heard about it, or maybe the internal testing that we heard about? So you think I just want to hate stuff? Is that what you think? You think I'm just like, yeah, I just love hating games. That's my favorite thing to do. I hate Fair Games because of a CGI trailer. Or maybe, just maybe, we heard competitive heist game and it sounded like a record scratch. It was like, what? Competitive heist game? Who the frick wants that? Who wants a competitive heist game? And then we heard the internal testing was bad. And then the director left right after that happened. Right after they did internal testing that didn't go well and wasn't received well. Like, the lady at the helm leaves. Like, come on. Like, I'm not just hating to hate. It sounds like it's a literal failure. It's a dead man walking as a project. Oh, we'll just reboot it. Yeah, sure. Reboot a competitive heist game. Send it into development hell. That always works for live service games. It was internally referred to as the future of PlayStation, with Star Wars-like potential and dev culture of toxic positivity halted any negative feedback, making it cost $400 million. Oh, Colin did tweet that. Yeah, but if you listen to the clip, that's not... I don't know why he said making it cost $400 million. There is literally no way. There is no way on God's green earth that studio burned through $400 million on Concord. There is no way. That's not possible. That is impossible. I mean, unless some of the higher level, like, leadership was literally taking insane salaries. How do you burn through $400 million in investment on Concord? That doesn't make an ounce of sense. Colin claimed he talked to a dev from the team. He says before it was in alpha, they had used the $200 million. Good Lord. When I watched him originally talk about it, he was just speaking to the investments. I've never seen this clip where he says, yeah, they burned through $200 million before it was even an alpha. Like I said, something doesn't smell right about that. That doesn't smell right. Where did the money go? He explained it in his 4-hour show. I remember watching the clip where he said they got $200 million and then they got another round of $200 million. And I remember that was like, well, that didn't come from PlayStation because people kept saying it cost PlayStation $400 million. I'm like, no, it sounds like Firewalk was out here selling fake beans to people, selling magic beans to people, and they got a bunch of money from a bunch of people who didn't know any better. And I always took it as, well, they had other projects. We don't know what happened with the money. If they burned through $200 million before the game was even an alpha, then something fishy was going on. There is literally no way. How long was the game even in development? There's not even enough years of time to burn through that much money. How have they not been sued? I've no idea. Thank you, Joker Quinn, for 27 months in a VIP. Geez Louise, 27 months. That's a lot of months. And that gets us to 18 on the week. Yeah, I was incorrect. I thought that all Colin confirmed was $200 million investment and then another $200 million investment. I was not aware that he literally said it cost $400 million. They burned $200 million before they were even an alpha. I've never seen that clip. The other clip I saw was just about them procuring investment. And I thought, well, what the frick did they do with that money? Because there ain't no way they spent it on this game. I'm pretty sure Colin wasn't saying $400 million wasn't total dev money. He included purchasing Firewalk in that. Okay, but the $400 million didn't come from PlayStation Echo. This is where we keep missing the big picture here. There is no $400 million included in purchasing them. It was investment that they got. They went and got investment outside of PlayStation. He is saying Sony spent $200 million after taking them over. No, the original comments on it were they got $200 million, then they went and got another $200 million. There's no way Sony spent $200 million after acquiring them. There's literally no way. They would have burned that thing to the ground before they even got to that point. You wouldn't be like, yeah, here's $200 million after acquiring you. There's no possible way that that's what happened. Because the original statements that he made were, maybe it wasn't him, maybe I misheard, maybe I read an article. It was that they got investment and then they got investment. That the $200 million did not come from PlayStation. Lono is right. Colin cleared that up already. That's what I'm saying. I watched a clip where I feel like he clarified this, and it was investments. It was not from Sony. Studio wasn't that big. How do we know how much Sony spent after buying? That's not publicly provided, says AOZ. He did 2 shows on the subject, says Silent Spartan. That's what I'm saying. The clip I saw is the one I'm talking about. I'm telling you, he clarified this and was like, no. It was $200 million in investment and then another $200 million investment. It didn't come from Sony. Because that's not how it works. You don't buy a studio and then give them investment. You buy the studio and then you either shoulder their production costs, or they say, maybe there's times where they say, hey, we need an injection of cash here. But I don't think you get like acquired and then say, hey, daddy, can I have $200 million? Like that. Oh, that's on Icon Era. I'm telling you, there was a clip of him clarifying this. It was like it came later because everybody was running. I feel like this is what happened. This is my memory of it. And again, my memory's getting foggy and old. My memory was he does a show where he says this. Everybody starts running with the headlines that PlayStation wasted $400 million on Concord. He does a second show to clarify that the money came from investments. It did not come from PlayStation. That's my memory of the timeline. That in the timeline of things, everybody's running with the headline, PlayStation loses $400 million on Concord. And he later comes back and says it was investment of 200 and then another 200 later. These were investments. These were things they went out and did outside of PlayStation and Sony. It had nothing to do with Sony and PlayStation. That was my memory of the story. Is that he had to clarify this after the fact. And that's why I was like, I don't think he ever said, oh, it cost this much money. It looks like he did say it initially and then came back later and gave more specifics. As in like, well, yes, you could claim that it cost that much money because the investments are basically not going to see ROI. But he didn't say PlayStation spent $400 million. I literally just watched Colin say Concord costs over $400 million to make. I'm telling you, I think he came back and clarified his remarks, though, and that it was investments. We don't know if the money was actually spent. He was clearly talking about total costs. I cannot fathom how that's possible. I can't fathom how that's possible. It was in development for 8 years, so I imagine there were a lot of false starts before they got to build what they liked. It's not even that big of a studio, though. Can we all agree we can't trust Icon Era? I mean, Icon Era is just a forum. It's not a news outlet. It's not a news outlet. It's a forum where people can post. The only way it could be, in my opinion, is they built their own engine from the ground up. What engine did they use? Yeah, they used Unreal 5. They didn't build up an engine. He talked to somebody who worked on the game. Again, my understanding is he came later and clarified those remarks. Yeah, I mean, how can a studio that small outspend a Spider-Man budget? That doesn't make an ounce of sense. It doesn't make any sense. That's why I said it wouldn't surprise me at all if there's some kind of an investigation and there was something fishy going on at that company. Because think of it this way. If you get $200 million in investment, how could you possibly need any more after that? Wasn't the budget for like Spider-Man 2 like $250? Like, you know what I'm saying? No, Paul, you're doing this thing, Paul, where you don't listen. You just keep banging on the same thing. So stop posting the same clip and listen to what I'm saying. There was a clip later where he clarified that the money it came from investments. It wasn't from PlayStation. That's what I've been banging on, is that PlayStation didn't write a check for $200 million for Firewalk. Excerpt from IGN. Kotaku's report, which cites two sources familiar with the agreement, says that the $200 million was not enough to fund Concord's entire development, nor did it include the purchase of the Concord IP rights or Firewalk Studios itself. Kotaku's number aligns with an earlier report saying that Probably Monster, Firewalk's original parent company, raised $200 million in 2021. But what did they even get purchased for? Wait, what was their purchase price? How much did they get purchased for? I don't even think that was public. PlayStation purchased Firewalk for how much? For how much? No one knows. Sony acquired Firewalk Studios for an undisclosed amount. While details of the acquisition were never made public, news reports confirm that Sony entered an agreement to purchase the studio in April of 2023. The primary reason for the acquisition was to secure Firewalk's work on an unannounced multiplayer game, which was later revealed to be Concord. So, if they acquire them in 2023 for an undisclosed amount, 2 years prior to that, the studio raised $200 million. Now, the second influx of $200 million, again, as far as I understood it, Moriarty came out later and said that was also procured through investments, not through Sony. Unless I completely misunderstood the clip and heard it wrong. He said the $200 million was procured before purchase and another $200 was procured after purchase, and it didn't come from Sony. Like, if you get $200 million in 2021 and then 2 years later PlayStation's acquiring you, and then you need another $200 million, I'm thinking, what the frick are y'all doing with your money over there? A $5 super chat from VTech. Tekken 8 is the best fighting game today. Okay. Arena, aren't first-party multiplayer games expensive to build? Naughty Dog canceled Factions 2 because of the time and cost it would take, especially the maintenance. That's not what Naughty Dog said. Naughty Dog did not cancel Factions because of the time and the cost. They canceled Factions because they were basically told, you will need to become a live service studio, and they didn't want to do that. Shuhei Yoshida confirmed this and corroborated this when he said they wanted to be able to work on things like Intergalactic, and they would not have been able to do that if they launched Factions. It was all or nothing. You're going to need the entire studio to support this game. And they were like, we don't want to do that. They were basically given a choice. This thing will not be able to launch and run with like a small team supporting it. You need the studio to throw its weight behind it. And they were like, we're not doing that. We've got other projects we want to work on, like Intergalactic. Bungie doesn't care about the money with Marathon. They're trying to make a really good game for a wide variety of audiences. I don't think Marathon has once positioned itself as that. I'm not sure where you're getting that opinion, but they literally came out and said it's a game that's not for everybody in one of their first dev diaries from like the director. Want to make a multiplayer version of it instead of a live service game? Well, because in 2017 and 2018, the entire gaming world watched a game called Fortnite burn the world and make billions of dollars, and everybody thought we can do that too. So in 2019, Naughty Dog says we're going to make The Last of Us Factions a separate thing. It grew too large to attach it to The Last of Us Part 2. So they announced in 2019 they're going to be separating it. Now, this is before they have made their big live service push at PlayStation. But internally, they're probably having the same conversations that Naughty Dog had. Everybody watched Fortnite and thought, holy crap, there's a lot of money that you can make with an ongoing game, and the bandwidth required is probably significantly lower than what it costs to make like an entire single-player game from beginning to end, right? Like if you look at Fortnite, you're maintaining a map, server infrastructure, and like a weapon meta, but you're not making some big, huge, long, 20-something hour story with, with mocap and screen writing and scripts and everything else. So Fortnite essentially completely in a tectonic way changes the course of history within gaming. Like Fortnite completely changes the course of history. So not only does Naughty Dog think, oh, we can do that, I think PlayStation internally also thought there's money to be made there. You've got C-suite level people and shareholders saying, holy frick, where do we need a game like that, right? So PlayStation, in the wake of that, comes out and says, we're going to be launching live service games. They were so bold, they were going to do like 12 live service games by 2026. At the time, I told you guys, I said, there's no way that's happening. If we see half of those games, I'll be surprised. I said, if we see 6 of the 12, I'll be shocked. Herman Holst indicates they're wanting to have a diverse portfolio of games. They're not just going to make a bunch of Fortnite games. They're going to have a diverse portfolio of live service games. Not surprising, the games they have shipped are Helldivers 2, Concord, they have Fair Games in the pipeline, and Marvel Tokone Fighting Souls. None of these games are even remotely the same, right? Helldivers 2 is a hit, Concord is a flop, Tokone Fighting Souls looks incredibly promising and will likely be very popular and even have big tournaments, and Fair Games is probably cooked. Now, Marathon is not under their direction. Marathon was a project born by Bungie prior to acquisition, and it's actually being published by Bungie. It's not being published by PlayStation, as for now, Bungie is operating as an independent entity. Now that, Pete Parsons is gone, and Sony officially announced during a shareholders call that they will be becoming a PlayStation studio and being restructured, we may never see Marathon see the light of day. Currently, it seems to be coming out no matter what. Whether that's something that Bungie has control over or PlayStation has control over, I have no idea. I would think if Sony was in charge, they would just cancel the dadgum thing, because it's another blemish on their efforts. All you're going to do is continue to make the public think if PlayStation brings a live service game to the market, it's crap, because right now they have Concord and Helldivers 2. So it's like, okay, that one was good, that one was terrible. They're literally polar opposites. Your next swing needs to be a good swing. I don't think that Marathon is a good swing. It's not about copying Fortnite if what they can offer that Fortnite doesn't. It's not about doing another Fortnite. It's about Fortnite shocked the world. A simple concept in an ongoing model was printing money, and it took over the gaming world. That's what impacted all these studios and all these companies to say, we need live service games. This is why I think in 2021, probably Monsters, the Firewalk parent company, was able to go out and get $200 million in funding for a live service game. Because they probably put together a very flashy presentation about the amount of money Fortnite was making and about how this is where people are spending all their time. They probably trotted out player charts and player behavioral reports and how many hours and how many dollars and pennies people are spending in these dadgum games, and they procured a bunch of funding. Then they walk over to PlayStation. They convince Herman Holst they've got an absolute banger on their hands. He thinks that the game has massive promise. He thinks Concord's going to be huge. So they broker a deal. They do an acquisition in 2023 of Firewalk. At the time, we have seen and heard nothing about Concord. We know nothing about the game. And then in 2023, same year they're purchased, the showcase, the PlayStation Showcase, there's a trailer, a cinematic trailer for Fair Games, there's a cinematic trailer for Marathon, and there's a cinematic trailer for Concord. PlayStation's starting to take their shots. They're starting to lay the groundwork. We've got live service games coming, and they're all cinematic. And I was extremely critical of that. I'm like, we have no idea what these games are going to be about. Then we hear that Marathon's an extraction game. We hear that Concord is a hero shooter. We hear that Fair Games is an extraction heist game. These all sound like disasters waiting to happen. We finally see gameplay for Concord in 2024. And everyone's like, what the frick is this derivative crap? It's some 5v5 hero shooter that looks an awful lot like Destiny. Then the game comes out, crashes and burns, shut it down 12 days later, issue refunds. Now, this is in the wake of Helldivers 2 going well beyond what they expected. The Helldivers CEO told the tech department, don't expect more than 100,000 concurrent players. They hit almost 500,000 concurrent on Steam alone. Okay, Helldivers 2 absolutely sets the dadgum world on fire. Not since Fortnite have we seen a game like this. And now Marvel Rivals would be the next game that has had that level of explosive growth and excitement. These live service games can do this, right? They can kind of explode organically. overnight. This is why these companies are going to continue to put money behind these live service games, because in their mind, it's a small bet with big returns. That's why I find it almost impossible to believe that PlayStation threw $200 million at Concord after acquisition, right? Now, if they acquired the studio for $200 million, well, I mean, you acquire studios for sometimes, in the billions if they're the size of Bungie, right? $3 billion. So if the acquisition cost of Firewalk was only $200 million, that's not that big of a deal. If they acquired them and then also wrote a check for $200 million, well, that's a completely different story. I can't imagine buying them, looking at their progress and thinking you need another $200 million. Thank you, Sven, for, hang on, I don't have it in front of me. 33 months. Didn't know you were alive today. Yes, indeed. We don't really do holidays here unless it's like Thanksgiving or Christmas. That's pretty much it. They mess up either way. Shock no one got fired. Well, I would imagine internally, 187, PlayStation admitted, listen, we got too bold here. And a 50 bomb comes from Silent Spartan out of nowhere. Holy cow. 58-11. Listen, Twitch, it's September. You guys are going to need to bring the heat because this man just dropped a 50 bomb. You guys are well in your position to compete. Now's a good time. Excuse me. And a single comes in from Stone Spire. Excellently done, Stone. He's like, hey, he just hit a 50 bomb. Why don't we get a 5 bomb out here? I owe you guys a single for 25, a single for 50. I could owe you a third single for 75. I could owe all 3 to Team YouTube. But Twitch, this is the perfect time to steal. Yeah, spam that farty bomb emote. It's been a little dry. It's been a little dry on the farty bombs. We came up with the emote and then everything changed. Excuse me. Herman Hulse got demoted. He has not been demoted. That's false. He was promoted and then kept his position. That's another thing that people said that was completely untrue. He was not demoted. People's insistence that he got demoted is one of, I think, the single most frustrating pieces of news coverage I've ever had to deal with. He was not demoted. He was promoted, and then a year later, they were like, he's going to continue in that role. Like, they literally said, Totoki is going to step away from this role that he was interim. Nishino's getting promoted. Herman Hulse is going to continue in the job that he was promoted to last year. That's literally what the press release said. Like, and people contorted themselves and broke their own backs to be like, Herman Hulse was demoted, though. It was like, no, he wasn't. Oh my gosh, like ice picks to my temples. Like, no. Super Gaming with 35 months in the VIP. 1 month from 3 years. Best 3 years. Thank you so much, Super Gaming. Appreciate it. I got to agree with Colin on this one. He has a boss now, never did before. This is also false. Opinions are not fact. That is false. Herman Hulse had a boss before. He was answering to the interim, which was Hiroki Totoki. It was understood that Totoki was not in the position permanently. Once they found a replacement, once they found somebody to take the job, it went to Nishino. It wasn't like Herman Hulse was just this rogue with no boss prior to Nishino. Herman Hulse had a boss before that, and now he's answering to Nishino. Changing the order of like hierarchy and structures like that is not a demotion. That is like such an egregiously false interpretation of what happened. That's not even remotely accurate. Companies like this do this all the time. And if suddenly you're like, hey, we promoted you to this position, you're staying in that position, but this is the chain of commands now. Oh, I just got demoted. No, you didn't. They're just changing who you answer to. Like, that happens all of the time. Changing the hierarchy in the chain of command is not a demotion when your position that you were promoted to like 8 months prior, they're like, yeah, we're going to keep you in that position. Like, I got promoted to a branch manager position from assistant. I got promoted to branch manager. Office joke. This is before the office was popular. I get promoted to branch manager. They changed who I answered to all of the time. The regional guys rotated. The head manager of the entire branch got changed pretty regularly. It was never a demotion. My title stayed the same. My responsibilities stayed the same. They were just always flipping people around. I don't know why. It was the weirdest thing I'd ever seen. It was like regional guys lasted like 6 months. Thank you, Minstree, for 48 months on a VIP. Off topic, what does this 007 state of play mean for the alleged Sorrow state of play? When do you think that will happen? Well, you guys remember what I said. Thank you so much for the 60, by the way. PlayStation does not like marketing their own stuff until their thing has come out. I said, listen, I don't think we're going to see the Saros gameplay deep dive until after Yote releases. Now, PlayStation is happy to do state of plays about Final Fantasy, Borderlands, or in this case, 007. They're happy to partner with third-party companies and do state of plays. PlayStation's marketing is they will not turn the spotlights onto Saros until after Yote is out. So I kept telling people, I was like, I don't think we're going to get that gameplay until Yote has released. Then they will be like, okay, now we're free and clear to do this. Yo, what's good, Behemoth? 9 months over here on Team Purple gets us to 73. We are 2 away from the next milestone of 75. Thank you so much, Mr. Behemoth. What concurrent player average does Marathon need to hit, in your opinion? Hunt Showdown numbers? Bigger? Oh, much bigger. Internally, that game needs to chart or it's cooked. It's cooked if it doesn't chart. What just happened? Oh, did you just upgrade to tier 3? Thank you, Behemoth. It needs to have like 25,000 concurrent players. It needs to do incredibly well. It does. If Sony have spent $400 million on Concord, then Herman Hulst would be gone. But still, he's the CEO of PlayStation Studios. Yeah, there ain't no way. No, I disagree, man. You don't go from co-head of everything, he was not co-head, to having a direct boss. I agree it's not an official demotion, but it's whack and sends a signal. Yes, because you're fabricating a reality that doesn't exist, Taco. He wasn't the that was not his title. If you read the press briefings on this, what you're saying is propaganda that was pushed out by people who try to spin everything that happens at PlayStation as a negative. That's not true. He wasn't the co-head of anything. He was promoted to a job. 8 months later, they were like, Totoki is no longer doing this interim role. Nishino's getting promoted. Herman Hulst is maintaining his position that he was given 8 months ago. They weren't co-heads of anything. There was no title granted to them that said that. I went and read the press briefings because I couldn't believe it. I was like, what are people talking about? Jim Ryan got fired and Herman Hulst is about to. Just don't look at how well PlayStation's fiscal year financials looked, right? Like, I'm telling you, this happens all of the time in gaming coverage. False headcanon is a sickness in gaming culture. People get false headcanons about so much stuff, and it's like, yeah, PlayStation spent $400 million on Concord, not true. Jim Ryan was fired, not true. Herman Hulst was demoted, not true. PlayStation's dead, not true. PlayStation's doing terribly, not true. Like, it's just constant. It's just constant barrage of like, none of these things are even remotely accurate. There's not a single piece of factual evidence to point to any of this stuff. Only Sony, you lose almost $1 billion and you're safe. Yeah, you laugh, but what you're laughing at is the absurdity that people actually believe that's what happened. They actually believe that, like, Herman Hulst burned through $500 million, and they're like, yeah, that's fine. You look really handsome in a jacket, so we're going to keep you. Is PvP riskier type than PvE? I think PvP inherently is harder because a handful of reasons why PvP is inherently harder than PvE if you're trying to do live service. Number one, I think PvP is more automatically player funnel dependent because you need matchmaking. You need lots of people playing all the time so that matchmaking is quick and in your region. You want it to be quick, you don't want people waiting, and you want it to be in your region so you don't get lag. Okay, that's an automatic layer of difficulty. The second layer of difficulty in PvP versus PvE is the fun factor in PvP is a lot more narrow. There's a winner and a loser every game. Losing is almost never fun in PvP. How many PvP games have you said, man, I just lost 7 games in a row and I'm having an absolute blast? Like, this is why skill-based matchmaking is in basically every single game in existence, because they know they have a vested interest, a financial interest. They have a business impetus to keep people in the game, and that's what skill-based matchmaking is designed to do. It's designed to make it so that you don't lose a bunch of games, because if you do, you'll quit. These, I think, are significant, and I mean significant challenges if you're going to launch a PvP game. The other reason PvP games are very, very difficult, it's very hard to avoid being a meat grinder. It's extremely hard to avoid being a meat grinder. It's like we've all kind of been there, done that. Like, we've all played the arena shooter where you spawn, run the choke points, get a kill and die. Spawn, run the choke points, get a kill and die. Like, over and over and over and over and over and over again. It's also really, really hard in PvP to not feel like you're just derivative, like you're just something else that has already sort of been in the market before, whether it's Quake, whether it's Unreal Tournament, whether it's Call of Duty, you know, whether it's any of those games from those eras of time to now. It's really, really hard to not feel like you're just derivative. If you try to do something in Battle Royale, if you try to do a tactical shooter, if you try to do something that's more econ based like Valorant or CSGO, if you try to do something that's more, you know, arena based or more fast paced or round based or, you know, or extraction based, whatever you do, nothing's new under the sun. It's like, well, I've played something like this before. I've experienced something like this before. That's another layer of challenge with PvP. You have a lot more freedom in PvE, right? Like, there's elements to Helldivers 2 that you could be like, well, yeah, I've played this before, but not quite. Right? PvE games, you can end up with iterations of weapons and power and skill trees and all sorts of things that are a lot more difficult when you're playing against other players. Like, I saw a video of a guy who, he tried Helldivers for the first time, had no idea what he was doing, legitimately said out loud he did not understand why he bought the stuff, like he bought weapons in his mind. He bought like a war bond, and he literally said out loud, I have to play to get them. Said it out loud without a hint of irony. There wasn't a hint of irony in what he was saying. He couldn't believe that he actually had to play the game. Like, incensed that he couldn't just spend money to get guns and then that was the end of the matter. It was like, oh, I actually have to play the game. Like, the horror of spending money and, you know, playing the game. Like, what an egregious offense that Arrowhead has, you know, heaped on the players. Anyways, in that reaction, he mentioned something like the game would need PvP. Well, here's one of the significant challenges of Helldivers PvP. If you were ever here for any of the Helldivers PvP community game nights that we had, it would never work. You die so unbelievably fast from everything that the player has. Every heavy weapon, every turret, every bomb that you can drop. It's like instantaneous death. Like, is that fun? You know what I'm saying? Like, the time to kill, it's not time to kill. It's like literally just like you're dead. Like, there is no measurement of like, you're dead. It's like, yeah, you got hit by the bomb and you died. There's not like, oh, you took a couple seconds there. No, it's like instantaneous. Well, why? Because the level of power that you're given is in conjunction with what's required of you, whether it's like swarms and swarms of robots or bugs. And Cat comes in with the 10 bomb and gets us to 83, starting the week strong on a holiday. I owe 3 members to Team YouTube, and it's 70-12. Twitch, it's September, and YouTube is taking it to the cleaners. What is going on? Thank you so much, Cat. Got my Social Security check today. Just kidding. Thanks, Cat. That was good. Helldivers PvP would have to be asymmetric, 4v1, let one controller control the bugs. Yeah, we've had games like that, and they don't typically last very long because it just isn't fun to be, on either side. It gets very, Evolve and other games have tried this, cat and mouse, 3v1, 4v1 thing, and it typically just doesn't seem to have a whole lot of demand in the market. Right. In any case, that's why PvP is so much more challenging. Back to my original point, Helldivers can go crazy and give you an insane amount of power, an insane amount of bombast at the push of a button. Why? Well, you're fighting really big bugs, enemies, structures, tanks, whatever. You're not fighting against other players. Like, the minute you give that level of power to people in a live fire exercise, it's just going to get whittled down into the most basic meta of, well, what's the strongest thing, what's the fastest way to kill the other player, and it's like, well, basically everything is the fastest way to kill the player. I mean, everything that you have. The mech suit, I mean, I guess you could put everybody in mech suits in Helldivers, but even then, they're not built or structured with movement agility or firepower to be in that kind of an environment. And I've said this very many times. The best PvP games are just PvP games. They focus on their core competency. It's not a tack on to something. Helldivers has been out for a year and a half. Let's add PvP. It would be a tack on. It would not be substantive. It probably wouldn't be built very well or balanced very well. That's not their expertise. Clearly, they've made a great game within a lane that the first game was in. They just kind of changed the perspective, right? The top down versus the third person. And I think if you stick to your core competency, you end up with better games. You see Arc Raiders as a surefire hit. I don't know if I would say it's a surefire hit. I would say that it has public confidence, it has public interest, and it has momentum. Yo, what's good, Charles Hawk? I thought today was Sunday. Well, it's a long weekend for a lot of people because of the holidays. So maybe that's why you thought that. A lot of people are not working today, which is one of the reasons why we're having a slightly, lower turnout. But we're having a big day regardless. Try to get us to 200 likes, guys. We need 50 more likes on the video. Let's have a big day regardless of the holiday. So, Silver Subaru with the VIP and 55 months of members. That's a lot of months. Hope you and your family had a great weekend. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate it. Yeah, soccer went great on Saturday. We've got a couple more 8:30 games. I'm not thrilled about it because it starts to get cold, but better than being too hot, I would say. All right, here's what we should do. Let me get my B-roll ready here. So I've got some trailers for you guys to watch while I talk. Let's see here. Silksong trailer. We got news on Silksong. We got news on Marathon to talk about. And then we've got, Lost Soul Aside. I even got a thread on Lost Soul Aside, which is It ain't great. It sounds like they had some pretty serious problems rebooting and the like. Okay. Let me get this set up here. There we go. Happy Labor Day. Thank you. I think the Hollow Knight Silksong effect should be studied. In the wake of the game finally giving us this new trailer, as well as a release date, there were a lot of questions about why did we have to wait so long. I've talked about this a lot in these live streams. What in the world? Where is the game? What is going on? I want to quickly talk about the reason for the delay. Like, not necessarily a delay. They didn't delay it, but there was a delay in communication. Also, the silence, the team size, the price, and the lesson. A lot of, I think, people are taking the wrong lessons from this and sort of acting as if this is something like every game studio can do, and this is like super informative. I actually think there are good lessons, but we'll get to that in a second. First, let's just talk about the reason. First and foremost, you have to know that the original Hollow Knight is one of the most successful, I guess we would call it a cult classic, which is sort of weird with it selling over 15 million copies. Now, that put a team their size into an insane level of funding, okay? They could just take their time with the next game, which is literally what they were doing. They did an interview and they said, well, they were just having fun. Jason Schreier of Bloomberg was expecting a lot of the cliche answers of they were running into problems and difficulties or scope creep or dev hell. No, they were having fun. That's the reason that it took so long for this game to come out, which at some level is kind of adorable, that like they're just sitting around having a good time, and their approach to development is actually really enjoyable. They said like they've come up with a method of development that they feel is really, really enjoyable. Like they're able to just kind of stay in development. Like they didn't get tired or bored or anything. Okay. So that's the reason. Now let's talk about the silence. Now again, they were just having fun, and because of that, they were not checking the internet. Their friends and their family would like send them funny memes about the game, but they largely were ignoring the internet. They were ignoring Twitter. They were ignoring Reddit. They weren't like, oh, what's everybody saying? It probably would have drove them a little bit crazy if they did. And then, if you've got friends and family just sort of sending you funny memes about the game, you can kind of laugh and stay in good spirits. Now, recently, Kojima revealed that he doesn't actually play a lot of games, and he takes his inspiration from the world around him. And there were people taking issue with that, like, these devs don't play games and it shows. Well, a lot of the times we constantly complain that all games are derivative and too much like other games. And I think we saw why Kojima feels pretty free and clear to make games like Death Stranding 1 and 2 that are not like really any other game out there, to the point that people are maybe a little bit overly critical of them and falsely summarize them as like, walking simulators or FedEx simulators, which is a complete reduction of what those games actually offer. And ironically just betrays the fact that people don't even actually play his games. They just talk about them from an armchair position. But this strikes me as a similar benefit to Hollow Knight. They were just ignoring all of the internet, all of the things that are out there, all of the stuff that people say, the demand for them to say something. They were able to tune that out, as it were, and just focus on the game, which hopefully when the game comes out, it yielded really, really great results. Now, the other thing to talk about is not just sort of the reason it took so long and their silence, but the team size. It's basically 3 people. This obviously helped keep costs down, especially when you sold 15 million copies of your first game. It also probably helped keep direction in a good place. It's hard to have scope creep when the team is so small. You don't have somebody walking in every day like, well, what if we did this? Or what if this game does this? We should do that too. I think it allows the game to get bigger in size, because they've said it, grew quite large. In their one update, they indicated that. But even within the larger size, it helps the vision stay focused, having that small team, which brings me to the price. The original game was $15 at launch. Now, there were leaks that this game was going to be $20, and they came out on Twitter and confirmed this game will be $20. That sounds crazy to me. I was thinking this is going to be a $40 or $50 game. Easy. I'm playing, Shinobi Art of Vengeance right now, and I'm looking at this game thinking this game is going to be probably larger, bigger, more expansive, so much more to it, right? I loved Ori and the Blind Forest, Will of the Wisps, Hollow Knight, Prince of Persia and the Lost Crown. I'm thinking Silksong is going to deliver an insane amount of value. They could easily charge 40 or 50. I'm seeing that sentiment everywhere, by the way. People are like, oh my gosh, I was willing to spend more. Now, maybe, just maybe, they're in the bold position to do this. They can be sort of bold with the price because the demand is so insanely high. Now, keep in mind, they're a small team. So 15 million sales of their first game at $15, that's a lot of dollary dues for a team of only 3 people. $20 price point could do the same thing. I saw people all over Twitter saying, you know what? I was going to kind of hold off. I was going to kind of wait. But now they're saying, I'll buy it for 20. I'll try it out for 20. That's not really my kind of game, but I mean, goodness, everybody's talking about it. So for $20. Now, the unfortunate reality is if the first game sold 15 million copies at $15 and it took 7 years to come out, that means the third Hollow Knight's going to take 20 years to come out because they're just going to start having fun again, and they're going to really enjoy development, and they're going to have tons of money, which brings me to the lesson, right? What's the lesson here? Well, there are wrong lessons I'm seeing sort of trumpeted by the gaming community and people that are sort of wanting to talk about how, like, well, this is really informative of what, you know, game development should be like. People are like, well, anybody can do this. Just keep the team small. Oh, yeah, and just take as long as you want. Now, I don't think a lot of people could get away with that. I mean, we saw people getting really, really impatient, and the community around Hollow Knight was generally pretty charming and positive, and they made it sort of a joke. Now, I think these are very broad sentiments, like, well, just take as long as you want and keep your team small, okay? I don't think these are lessons that every studio can apply because they're just a little bit too broad. So let's talk about the right lessons that could be learned from this. First and foremost, I think, regardless of team size, regardless of budget, I don't care who you are, you need to say less in your marketing. You can utilize silence, you can utilize infrequence, and you can utilize mystery to actually get people more interested in your game. The constant barrage and like beating the public over the head with marketing, I just don't think it is necessary. It also leads to things like we've seen before where you see these concept trailers, they're nothing like the original game, or like with Perfect Dark, you've got a trailer and the game seemingly looks very promising and then the game doesn't even come to market, it gets canceled. So say less in your marketing. The second thing, don't expand your team and your studio just for the sake of it. Helldivers 2 benefited from avoiding this. They did not want to grow their studio just for the sake of growing their studio, and it really has served them well. It's kept them likely very, very profitable. Now, Splitgate did the opposite. Splitgate went from 2 founders to over 200 employees. I got this from Laura Fryer's recent video about Silksong, and now they've had to do layoffs recently. So Splitgate expands, thinks, well, we got to expand for the sake of expanding. We've got funding. We've got all this stuff. What do? You grow to a size that is dangerous, and it leads to layoffs. The next thing I think companies should do, and I know this is sort of platitudinous, but I really think they should let fun and let passion back into the room. There's too much corporate control. There's too much of this clinical, sort of rigid planning. Expedition 33 and Hollow Knight Silksong are screaming, let passion back into the room. The CEO of Larian said this essentially at the Game Awards after Baldur's Gate did so incredibly well, and he said, I know who's going to win Game of the Year next time. Here's all the things they're going to do. You got to let passion back into the room. This is something I've talked about with larger studios. Maybe let smaller incubation projects spin up. See how they go. See how they do. Let passion be the driver. Smaller projects can cost less money. It can protect you from some of these insanely big budgets that are threatening to your company's solvency. I'm not saying we can't have big games and big projects and AAA should just completely abandon that, but I think they could maybe start to entertain smaller games and smaller incubation projects. But you've got to be careful because Bungie did this and it took away from their cash cow of Destiny 2 and it hurt the quality and then ultimately put them into the red, according to former CEO Pete Parsons. The other thing you should do is ignore unhelpful voices. This is a huge lesson from Hollow Knight Silksong. Ignore the unhelpful voices. The gaming community on Reddit and Twitter can be leveraged for great and helpful feedback. But if it's not helping your game, if it's not helping you focus, you've got to tune it out. I think that served these guys well. All right? And lastly, this is the last lesson to learn from Hollow Knight Silksong. If you have said less, if you've tried to utilize infrequency or mystery or mystique or silence, when you finally take your shot, you better bring 2 things. You better bring gameplay and you better bring a release date. These guys went quiet for a really, really long time. And when they took their shot, they took a big one. They didn't dangle. They didn't tease. They didn't mess with us. They dropped a trailer outlining all the great things that were going to be in the game, from enemy diversity to number of bosses. And most importantly, they brought the release date. So I think there are right lessons and there are wrong lessons to take from the Silksong effect. And like I said, I think it should be studied because as a game, they really are, I think, getting at the heart of what is giving a lot of people hope in smaller studios and smaller games. Because if you're driven by passion and you leverage things properly, you just might pull off the unthinkable, because these guys did, and other studios could probably do the same thing. So there you go. That's my thoughts on Hollow Knight. I'm curious what you guys think. You know, what do you guys think? Are there people sort of taking the right lessons, the wrong lessons from this game? They're kind of acting like, well, anybody can do this, right? You just keep your team small. You just keep your, keep your budget small. Anybody can do this. I don't know if that's necessarily true. Lono wearing a Deadpool shirt and talking about Silksong is kind of funny. If you know, you know. I don't know. I don't. Is this thing going to be a thing? Did I say it a lot in the segment? I agree. Laura Fryer kind of said like it was she kind of said it like it was a universal thing. I think she spoke in a similar way that I did. Like, there are lessons to be learned here. You gotta let passion back in the room. You gotta let fun back in the room. I think you got to start to say less. This incessant need to just always, you just market. Get a trailer. Get a demo. She talked about that. Like, you basically have the devs working on demos instead of working on the game because, we need something to show. Oh, not in the segment, but immediately afterwards. Okay. It's like a filler word that I use when I'm doing other things. Like if I'm using the mouse, moving things, closing things, I probably just use it as a crutch phrase. It's not always possible when there are suits at the top or you're in the multiplayer business. Activision and the COD studios can never be small now. Where did the thinking that we need to have constant buzz come from? Well, it probably comes from a couple of places, Zoob. Like, if other people are talking and you're not talking, they're potentially going to take the attention away from you, right? Like, there's only so much attention going around. What I think they're doing is they're applying the live service model to marketing. Well, there's only so much attention and there's only so many hours in a day, and you need people playing our game. And I feel like they're doing the same thing. Like, we need people thinking about our game. If they're not thinking about our game, they're thinking about somebody else's game. Gothmog says it makes sense. You want people to think about your game all the time, but then it can turn into noise that people filter out. Yeah, I applied this whenever I was teaching in an environment with 4, 5, and 6-year-olds. And I said, you have to use your voice effectively in an environment with young children, because you can mute yourself by constantly shouting or constantly giving instruction. If every time they do something, you're like, nope, don't do that. Nope, don't do that. Don't sit there. Don't do that. Don't run. Don't walk quickly. That's close to running. Don't tilt your chair back. Don't pick your nose. Don't wiggle in your seat. Like, what ends up happening is the expectation is, well, this teacher is constantly saying these things. So there's no behavioral change. It just becomes the norm. Does that make sense? Like, psychologically, the child just thinks, when I'm in this environment, that person's just constantly scolding me. So it doesn't create like a negative piece of feedback in their brain. It just becomes normal. This person just scolds me all of the time, right? I argue with my mother about this. She's constantly correcting my sisters about every little thing. So when it comes time to important things, they tune her out. Yes, it all becomes noise. So when I've got a kid tilting his chair back and he's going to get hurt, and I say, hey, put your seat down, he does it because I'm not scolding him constantly. Maybe I let him wiggle in his seat for a little bit. Maybe he was kind of being a little bit disruptive, and I, just kind of look in his direction, hoping that he calms down. But then he tilts his seat back and he could get severely hurt. And I'm like, hey, keep your seat down. And then he does it. Or it's like, all right, everybody come over here and circle up. And then they'll do it because when I'm raising my voice, it's only in that, that environment. I think with marketing, it can be very, very similar. If the expectation is every time I open up YouTube, every time I open up Twitter, every time I go to anywhere, I'm seeing trailers about this game, you might start to take away the potency of your marketing because it's just assumed. It just becomes background noise. But if you're not there, what do people do? They didn't say anything. Where were they? Why didn't they talk? Why didn't they show anything? And then they finally do, and everyone's like, oh, that was awesome. So I do think marketing could be thought of in a different way in these companies. Yeah, the No Man's Sky update is pretty good. Yeah. I didn't get a chance to play it, but I read through all the details, and I was like, oh my gosh, these guys are just insane. They're even putting things, they're like basically openly talking about how they're putting things in the game directly from Light No Fire, which we kind of already knew that. We kind of already knew that. So I'm not criticizing. I'm trying to understand how we got here. If I had to theorize, Zoob, we went from absolute unloading of salvos at E3. That was the best and most potent time you had everybody's attention. Okay? I think the intersection of daily life and technology has created this idea of, well, we always have access to their brains. So, give them the buzz. Give them the buzz. And it's like, I think early on it worked. If you were constantly putting yourself in front of people and constantly giving them the little buzz, you were getting the reaction. Over time, I think people have become numb to it. They're like, well, yeah, this is one of the reasons why I think we watch showcases now, and everybody at the end of the showcase, at the end of the state of play, at the end of the segment, at the end of the future games, it doesn't matter what it is. They're like, that sucked. That was lame. And what do they typically say? Well, we already knew about all the games. I already knew about all these games. There was nothing new. Well, yeah, there was. There was a bunch of gameplay. There was a bunch of this. There was new details. And what's the general consensus? It sucked. What's happened is they've become sort of inoculated to excite. Like they can't get excited anymore. It's constant. So a showcase doesn't stand out. Why? Because there's a constant barrage of tweets, trailers, updates, blog posts, screenshots, leaks every day. In the past, you took every opportunity to say something because you got 6 a year. Now you get 6,000 chances a day. It was a frog getting boiled. Yeah. And I think eventually the frog's just dead. It's like you can't get him to react. It's like he's just dead. It's like you're like we got a trailer. We got gameplay, and they're like, yeah, who cares? Let me get the goal back up. Like, who cares? And I think Hollow Knight is showing, like, yeah, silence is the new buzz. It's one of the things I've said about Destiny 3 is just go dark for 3 years. You just go dark for 3 years. And you just drop a trailer confirming that it exists, and you'd set the world on fire. Yeah, there's a state of play this Wednesday about the 007 game. They have 30 minutes. They have 30 minutes of gameplay. So I was kind of surprised. I'm like, why are they doing a state of play for that game? It's like next year. We don't even have a date. But then they said 30 minutes of gameplay. And I was like, oh, that's why they're doing a state of play. That's a pretty nice exclusive to get. GTA has been very quiet. Yep. GTA 6. Nothing. Boom. Silksong. Nothing. Boom. Destiny Rising is Destiny 3. Not even remotely. It's not a looter. You can't have it. You can't claim it's Destiny 3. It's not even a looter. It's not even made by Bungie. Sorry. I'll pause him, Jay Shep. Sorry about that. I'm interested to see the 007 gameplay. I am as well. To me, if it's the intersection of like Uncharted and Hitman, I think it's going to be fantastic. I think it's going to be such a fun romp. Like, just fun, you know. For clarity, the silence approach only works if you have a track record and it's a sequel. If it's a new IP, you need to let people know. Yes, but if you make a splash with the first trailer, like what they did with Horizon Zero Dawn, I think you can do that and then go dead quiet. And then come out swinging. Or like, yeah, or just do what Astrobot did. You are nowhere to be seen, and then you're just like, boom, here's the game. You can play it in a month. And you're like, what? Like, I think there's a couple of versions of this that work where you can leverage silence as a sequel, obviously. As a new IP, you can leverage silence in a couple of ways. Like, if you drop a trailer like Horizon Zero Dawn's original unveiling, and then you do nothing for a year and a half, I'll give you an example. Light No Fire. I've got Light No Fire videos that constantly get hit. Constantly. Why? People are like, where is this freaking game? When are they going to say something? Now, Light No Fire has a bit of an advantage because it's somewhat attached to No Man's Sky. Like, anytime No Man's Sky does something, all of my Light No Fire videos get a bump because people are starving. And they get mad at me because I thought we were going to get Light No Fire news a long time ago. Yeah, Ragnarok had very little press as well. You have to be confident in your game to try to sell it without a big market budget. This is true. At some level, I wonder if the marketing dollars are better spent afterward. If you're like, well, listen, we're going to budget for the marketing, but we're going to try this more silent, this more infrequent approach. Okay? And if that doesn't work, you're probably better off throwing your marketing dollars at the wall and at the public once the game is in the wild. Because now, if your game is good and if it's got review scores, then guess what? You can leverage that. You can leverage that to be like, look at what people are thinking about our game. Look at how well our game is doing. These are obviously things you could do after the fact that may in fact be more effective because, well, the game's out now. Instead of like, buy our game, please. It's not out yet, but it's going to be amazing. It's like, well, once the game is out, you have more, potentially, you have more in your corner to show as long as the game did well. If the game didn't do well, then obviously what I'm saying kind of goes out the window. But if you save your money, you save your marketing dollars to leverage after launch, it might actually work better. It might. That's, again, we're speaking theoretically. I think the lesson to learn from Hollow Knight is say less, leverage silence, leverage infrequency. These are things that could potentially help your game significantly, as opposed to falling prey to this, like, we've got to be constantly talking, and you potentially mute yourself in the grand scheme of things. And let me do this. Get some stuff here. Now, I am planning a segment right now where I'm going to help you guys get into the first Hollow Knight. I'm going to help you get into the first Hollow Knight. A lot of people false started with it. A lot of people false started with Returnal. A lot of people false started with Death Stranding 1. And we've done these streams where I'm like, all right, let me kind of show you and walk you through what will help you get into it. So if you're like, you know what, I'm going to hold off on Silksong. I kind of want to play the first one. Completely fine. Completely understandable. And if you do that, you're in for a lot of value. The first game's got a ton of replay value, It's got a ton of content, even if you just play it through at once. I think I got close to 30 hours on Steam when I played it. Good solid game, good solid price. And again, people may be interested in it this week. Concord had little press too. Well, I think one of the dilemmas with Concord was with a live service game, you kind of need feedback earlier than later. So I don't think anything we're talking about applies to a live service game. I don't think you can be like, surprise, live service game. I don't think you can do that. That's literally what Concord did, and everyone was like, hey, I appreciate the surprise party, but your game sucks. It's like throwing a surprise party for somebody who it's not their birthday and they hate birthday cake. It's like it's not going to go over very well. That's like what they did. They were like, surprise, we've got this great game. And everyone's like, yeah, nobody wants it. Do you see, like, yeah, it's like the Bart Simpson thing, like you tried cake. Like, I don't think you can pull this with live service. You need input very early on. You can't be like, hey, check out our game. It comes out in 3 months. And you're like, that doesn't look very good. Did you guys talk to the public at all? Who doesn't like cake? Let's say it another way, Hilly. It's a surprise birthday for somebody. It's not their party. And your birthday cake is made of, like, carrots and peas and Brussels sprouts. They're going to be like, that's not even good birthday cake. Like, that's what Concord was. Like, it wasn't even a good live service idea. It was like, huh? Maybe to say it another way, Hilly, it's like they just left a surprise birthday party, and you're like, hey, I got another surprise birthday party right here for you with more birthday cake. And they're like, I just ate a bunch. Like, I just had that. Like, that's what it was almost like. It was like, we've got this already. Concord, what? What is this? Like, there's a couple ways to do the analogy. The point is it's like, you can't do a surprise you can't do that with a live service game. You need the MVP in the public's hands as soon as possible so they can say, this is good, this sucks, this is bad, I like this, whatever the case may be. You need that feedback early on, which is related to the next thing that we actually need to talk about, is that Bungie's going to be paying folks to play Marathon. So Bungie is actually going to pay people to test the game. You did hear that correctly, chat. Yes, they are paying people $500 to help test Marathon. Okay, now when you hear the details of the test, you might think that that's a bit low, if I'm honest. Okay, now according to Deserto, this is what was communicated. Okay, quote, this user research study is a playtest that will run for 30 consecutive days from Monday, September the 8th to Tuesday, October the 7th, including weekends. You will be required to play for a minimum of 1 hour daily during the playtest window of 3 to 7 p.m. Pacific on weekdays and 2 to 8 p.m. Pacific on weekends. Okay, so you will be required to play for an hour a day for this entire 30-day thing. Now, here's the kicker. Here's what they say. Upon completing the study, you will receive a $500 gift card of your choice as a thank you for your valuable time and feedback. If you only complete part of the study, you will only receive the portion of the reward based on the number of days you have completed. Yes, that's right. A $500 gift card that you only get a portion of if you don't play every single day. All right. Now, I don't know about you, but the optics on this to me are not very good. Now, first, they seemingly need a pretty hefty commitment from people to test the game. You already have significant PR problems, right? But you're like, hey, for 30 days straight, I need at least an hour of your day. Oh, and by the way, it can't just be any hour. It has to be during these designated times. Now, listen, I get it. I understand what they're doing. They have to make the testing effective. They've got to have windows of time where people are playing. But for 30 days straight, they want an hour minimum a day if you want the full 500. Now, if you divide that 500 by those 30 hours, let's just quickly do quick maths here. It's $16 an hour. That's not terrible. Okay, that's not terrible if you do the minimum. Okay, But the second part of the optics here is that, well, Marathon is so bad, they're having to pay people to help test it. Okay, in the wake of how the game was received and the art theft and the showcase, this doesn't look good. And I get it. They need a ton of testing. They need a ton of hours. And people are going to want to be compensated for that if you're going to have that level of commitment. So I think they're sort of in a bit of a catch-22 where we need a lot of people. We need a lot of hours. How are we going to do it? Well, you're going to have to pay them, right? Now, this is in the wake of some pretty big news for Bungie. Now, the first was that Sony indicated during an earnings call that the studio was being sort of restructured and they were becoming part of PlayStation Studios. Now, many of us speculated that this was going to lead to leadership changes. This is going to change the game. This is going to change the company. This can be pretty big, right? We knew Sony was sort of chomping at the bit. Well, seemingly that has happened. Pete Parsons is out. And after Pete Parsons was, retired or left or fired or whatever, Justin Truman was not given the CEO title. He is merely the, quote, studio head. Now, this really has caused me to question if Marathon will see the light of day, especially after Herman Hulst remarked and said, well, we want our live service games to fail early and fail cheap, okay? As far as I can say, and as far as I can tell, Marathon's already done that, okay? Given the relationship with Bungie, they're publishing it. Like, it'd be cheaper just to stop now. Like, just be done with it. Don't be paying people $500 to play the game. Don't be running tests. Don't be spending production costs to spin up and have servers for 30 days. But wait, there's more about this playtest, okay? According to the Marathon Bulletin on Twitter, Marathon's 30-day playtest will run on Bungie's internal dev environment, not through Steam. Bungie is asking selected players to send their external IP address so that the team can, quote, add it to our firewall allow list. So remember, I said this game was a recipe for failure a long time ago. I put up a video and we got some wonderful, negative attention from Forbes and other people because I said this game is a recipe for failure, okay? It doesn't really seem like the ingredients are changing in the recipe. I originally predicted, well, the game's going to get delayed. It'll just never come out. At this point, we're just waiting to see if the second half of the prediction comes true because they've delayed it. And now, as far as I can tell, they're just setting it up to fail again. You're asking a lot from people to play test it. You're trying to pay them money to play test it. And if I was Sony, if I was in the helm, if I was in charge of this now, because I don't think they were for a while, I think Bungie was calling the shots, I would put this thing in the dirt and move on. Extract what you can from it for future projects, maybe future Destiny projects. Maybe a Destiny 3 could have environments like this because that was originally leaked by Anon the 9 that Destiny 3 was going to have PvPvE environments. I've theorized that that's what this is because as early as 2018 it was being playtested, and I don't think back then they knew it was going to be Marathon. So that's where I sit. They're paying people to test it, and there's no really way to win here. I just, at this point, I don't know why they're not canceling the game. So do you guys think this sees the light of day? I just don't. It just keeps getting worse. It just keeps getting worse. It really, really does. It's like there's not a PR move here for them that doesn't look bad. It just consistently gets worse and worse and worse. I don't see a way. I don't see a way out for them. It's like people don't want it. You're making people, commit a significant amount. I'm spending my gift card on a classic car. There you go. I mean, you're making people commit pretty significantly to just even test it. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like, well, if you want to test it, it's 30 days. You got to use our servers, and we've got to have your IP address. We need all this stuff. Like, I don't know, dude. It's like, to me, if that's what's going to happen, you've already lost. I want a $500 Lego card. I saw a video saying that you were dumb for saying the PlayStation 6 Series S is not the same as an Xbox Series S. Yeah, because they're not the same. One company has a history of talking to developers and establishing technology to go beyond that. I mean, the question I would have for them, did they actually watch how I said that would only work if the PlayStation 5 was the floor? There's nuance to the discussion. I think it's really difficult for people who are the missing link in evolution. Like, if the PS5 is the floor, then a PS6 is not a problem. If the Xbox One was still the floor for Xbox development because it was so strong, then the Series S wouldn't have been a problem. The Series S was the problem because of the memory bottleneck, particularly outlined by developers. Also, there's nuance to the discussion. All I was trying to do was understand why on earth PlayStation would do something that on the surface seemed incredibly stupid because it hurt Xbox. So again, that's called nuance. That's acknowledgement this looks like a bad idea, acknowledgement that it was a bad idea when Xbox did it, and the only way it's not going to be a bad idea is if the floor of development is the PS5. We have since heard that PlayStation is not doing a Series S, that Moore's Law was simply speculating and thinking that they might. So, yeah. If people are in that dire need of content that they are continuing to just squash my coverage and my commentary and remove nuance, I think that just speaks to their character. I made it very clear in that discussion that I thought this is a terrible idea. Why on earth would they do this? And I said the only theory I can come up with is the PS5 will have a significantly longer cross-gen cycle, meaning that's your floor, meaning you don't have to worry about a PS6S or a handheld, because if the PS5 is the floor, you're in a completely new context for development. As I said, with technology continuing to get depreciating returns on hardware boosts of power, you're actually having to rely on upscaling, frame gen, things like PSSR, FSR4. If that's what we're leaning on in the future, then a middle of the road updated console while maintaining the PS5 as the floor would be a completely new context for new hardware. And again, that nuance is going to make a person like that have blood squirt out their nose because they don't understand anything other than, ugh, this person dumb, they think this. Like, you're dealing with caveman level intelligence. Like, it's not even worth entertaining in the discussion, because when we were talking about that, I'm talking in a 2 to 3 hour long format, and I'm speaking within the nuance of, this looks like a terrible idea. Why would this company do this? And the only theory, it was a theory, the only theory I could come up with is they're going to extend the life of the PS5 and PS5 support, making a lower powered handheld or a lower powered PS6 not even remotely a problem. Because if the PS5 is the floor, the devs are wrangling with that. They're not wrangling with the new hardware. That nuance is lost on people who have an agenda to lie and misrepresent my content because they're not honest people. If you actually come and engage with me and you actually come and dialogue with me, that kind of stuff never is going to get off the ground. Because I said from the beginning that I thought it was a terrible idea. I'm like, why would you do this? It was a terrible idea for Xbox this gen. I guarantee you that's not in the coverage. I guarantee you that's not in the clips, because you're dealing with dishonest people. You're not dealing with people that are being fair and honest. They're not. They lack integrity, and they absolutely do not care about being honest or charitable to other people. They're not trustworthy individuals. They're not. They live lives of dishonesty and hate. That's what their existence is. So I lay my head on my pillow at night. I look at my kids in their eyes and provide for my family, and I do it with integrity. I don't do it with hate and dishonesty. So if that's the life they want to live, I hope the money they make is worth whatever compromises they're making on their own ethics and morals to treat others that way and to make money off of, dishonesty, hate, and harassment. I mean, it's the fact that we justify and act like this kind of content is legitimate, I think, is a freaking joke. I do. I don't have any other words to say than that. I thought our coverage of the matter was fair. I thought our coverage of the matter was nuanced. I thought it was honest. It was like, I think this is a terrible idea. It was a terrible idea last time, and the only way this is going to work is if they extend the life of the PS5 cross-gen support, and they seemingly have signaled that they're willing to do that with the way that they're implementing the technology into the Pro, knowing that the length of that and the arm of that is going to reach PS6. So to me, I feel like I was very fair. I wasn't tribalistic. I wasn't inconsistent. I was critical. I maintained my position about Series S. Now, there are differences, I think. There are differences. As hardware advances, we all know this. Hardware is giving depreciating returns. And in that context, you don't need a significant power bump in the future. You need intentional technology and software and features like ray tracing, PSSR, things like that. A memory bottleneck on the Series S, acting like anytime something comes out that isn't as strong, like let's say the handheld, right? Let's say they come out with a handheld. That doesn't mean it's going to have the memory bottleneck. It doesn't mean there's a parity clause. Do you see? Anybody who says those things are equal, they're not being honest, because they're not equal. They're being very reductionist and very platitudinous to act like, well, if a PlayStation 6S came out or a PlayStation 6 handheld came out, that's just like the Series S. No, it's not. The S was bottlenecked, and from the beginning, developers said that's a bad idea. Mark Cerny and the team at Sony has a history of going to devs and prioritizing the needs of devs first. So my trust in them as a hardware company is warranted. It's not tribalism. It would be like having trust in NVIDIA or having trust in, a car company that you feel like makes really good cars. They have earned my trust, and they have it until they break it. So if they came out in the PlayStation 6 era, they did something stupid, they didn't listen to devs, and devs were instantly critical of it, I would be right there being critical, being like, you didn't listen to the devs. What is that? That's called being consistent. That's called having integrity. At the moment, I saw no reason to be critical. I was initially like, this sounds like a dumb idea. And the only way it's not a dumb idea is, let me trot out a theory. So I trotted out a theory. And if that's going to be turned into, salt content or hateful content to continue to push forward this false notion and this lie that I'm a pony, again, that's that person just admitting they lack integrity and they're not honest. Because if someone has to continue to say, that's not me, that's not my position, I don't think that, and the other side continually insists upon that, one person in the equation is telling the truth. And the record and time will always be on my side because I'm actually telling the truth. There's actual context, live streams. You can come to my entire VOD history and search it with AI. You can do it. This isn't going to be some ordinary gamer's moment where you find out that I'm not really an engineer. Like, my coverage on these things has been insanely consistent. There is no ability to do it. You've got to grab clips from context and misrepresent them. Always. Always. So, people are continuing to play a real dangerous game because you've got to understand that type of content, man, it's already running out of steam. You're seeing these people that were super dishonest in their efforts against woke and their efforts against anything that they felt was like a thread. And that content's already running out of gas because it's like people are seeing through the veil and they're like, this isn't honest. It lacks integrity. It lacks, there's no North Star. There's no moral compass. It's just whatever I can get for click rate, whatever I can get for ad revenue. That always runs out of gas. The history of YouTube, the history of YouTube has made this crystal friggin' clear to people. So, you can make hay while the sun is shining, but you better hope that hay doesn't burn up in the sun because it doesn't last. I don't think you can build. You just can't build on that. It's great right now, but it won't be in a couple of years when that engine runs out. It always does. He's not an engineer? No. This is why I've always said, like, when you're consistent and you have integrity, well, no one can do that to you. Nobody can do that to you. It's why I always said I never shied away of talking about the stuff in 2020. Why? Because I'm being consistent and I'm being honest. You can't come over a single time where I've talked about what happened in 2020 and find an inconsistency or a lie. You can't. It's impossible because I'm merely recounting what happened. Everybody else can't do that, right? They had to remove everything. The same thing's going to happen with this kind of coverage. You can't treat people that way and treat, truth and reality as if it's like this flimsy thing that you can just do whatever you want with. It'll snap back eventually. It always does. It's why I won't get into that. I won't. I don't want to get into the mudslinging and pulling people up and clip farming them and misrepresenting them. It's gross. And anytime we've done reaction content, I'm very careful with how I do it. I'm like, I don't want to serve as a replacement. I wait so many days before I'll even cover it. And then when I cover it, I'm like, go support the original video. I try to be very charitable to them because I think that's healthier for the platform. I think it's better for the viewer. I think it's better for content creators to treat the platform like that. I think a lot of these people are going to learn those hard lessons in the future. Quick recap of Lost Soul aside. Yeah, that's my next story, and I need to get to it because we need to shift gears to Hollow Knight. I was going to show you guys Hollow Knight, the original game, and how to enjoy it. So let me get this one going here. Do I have the goal up? Yeah, I do. Okay. All right. So it seems like one of the first bigger titles for the PlayStation China Hero project is a bit of a bust. Lost Soul aside is not scoring well on either platform, PC or PlayStation. Now, my initial impressions of the demo did not change. I played this game on launch, really hoping that the day one patch would improve things, but it really didn't. Now, my impressions are very basic. I think the pacing is very poor. Dialogue's not that great. Writing and performance from the voice actors is not that great. Now, I could overlook all of that in a game like this if it delivers on all of the other stuff. But the combat, I think, to this day, there's differing opinions on this. I saw people all over Twitter saying they thought the combat was great. I think the combat feels terrible. It's loose. It's super delayed. It does not feel tight. Your blocks, your dodges. Now, I've had people say, oh, it gets better with time. It gets better the more you play. I think, and I've always said this, games that are centered around combat should feel fantastic from the beginning. The movement and the camera also don't feel very good. There's a very looseness to the game. So how's the game faring with the public? Am I off my rocker here? Where it has a 76% on the PlayStation Store. Now listen to me. That's actually a bad score for PlayStation because it's continuing to drop. So that 76 is not very strong. It's continuing to go down. Usually big, huge hits, successful games on PlayStation start out in the mid 80s or 90s, and then they slowly drop and they settle into the 80s or the 90s. There's a lot of really high scoring games on PlayStation. So a 76 is actually pretty bad. It has a 57% on Steam. The performance issues are worse there. Many of my criticisms, though, were also echoed in the Steam reviews that I could read. People just did not like the way the game felt. It has a 60% on Metacritic from both review outlets and users. And the number of reviews on PC indicates to me this has been a commercial failure on PC at least. It only has about 800 reviews on PC. And the unfortunate thing is, this is the type of game that everybody's saying was going to save the industry, right? It's an Eastern developer. It's a small team. It was driven by passion, and I wanted it to do great. We had a breakdown from Billy on Twitter. Basically, they put out a video sort of talking about the timeline. Went from one person to 3 people to 9 people to 19 people to like 29 to now 35 to 40. And along the way, the game had to be rebooted at certain points where the game just needed to be sort of retooled and restarted. In 2019, the game had to be scrapped and restarted from scratch, scaling it down. Like the open world thing was not working. And the unfortunate thing here is it started out with some very humble beginnings. It was one person. He was very passionate. The game development in all these years took a significant toll on him. And the fact that it went through this is really unfortunate. And PlayStation stepping in at a certain point and helping with production costs and helping with publishing costs is great. But now, because of that, it's a clear mark against the China Hero project. It's also a clear, huge indicator that all these huge grand claims that like Eastern developers were going to save us, or that AA and indie games were going to save us, I think that's largely been overstated. Wu Chang Fallen Feathers is another game with an unimpressive score on Steam at 69% and a 74% on PlayStation. Those are not strong scores for these types of games. And my review of Wu Chang was it was rough around the edges. It had a terrible, pretty ugly performance mode on console, performance issues, and other people took issue with the game's design and some of the core flaws and problems with the combat as well. Now, Wu Chang felt way better than Lost Soul Aside, but it's another Eastern developer small team game that didn't do what everybody said these games were going to do. It seems like it's going to take a bit more than just like a small non-Western dev team to deliver a great game. And hopefully, listen, for the sake of this game and the one man that was originally behind it, I actually hope they can turn this around. I saw a lot of people on Twitter saying they were loving it, they were having a great time, but for now, it's not looking good. And hopefully also for the sake of the China Hero Project, future titles can do quite a bit better than this one. So yeah, it's not doing so hot, and it's unfortunate. You know, it really, really is unfortunate. I don't know. I had high hopes for it. I especially liked when they showed that the trailer I had playing just now, where he was like switching weapons. I thought, man, that just looks great. That looks so fun. I mean, it looked like the kind of game that I would enjoy. It kind of reminded me of like how Final Fantasy 16's combat really pulled me in, and was, you know, a really good time. And then it just kind of wasn't, you know. Lost Soul Aside price should have been lower. AA niche game. I'll be part of that niche. 10% in. Enjoying it so far. Wu Chang has a 70% on Steam as of now. Wu Chang Fallen Feathers on Steam. Overall score is 69%. So no. The recent 30 days being a 71, that to me, it says, wait, English reviews, recent reviews? Yeah, this is what mine showed. Oh, wait, hang on. Let me fix my cap card. This is what mine showed when I checked it. And then it said recent reviews are better. A 71 versus a 69. I mean, come on, that's 2 percentage points. Like, again, the point being, my point stands. Like, these games were supposed to be this delivery into the promised land. Oh, if it's a small team, if it's an Eastern developer, yeah, it's going to be great. It's going to really help, you know, wage a war against the Western devs and these AAA devs. With like a 69%, with 70%, you sure about that? I don't think so, you know? What it means is you need more than that. You need more than like tribalistic platitudes about regions of the world and dev team size, right? Everything that comes out of the West isn't bad. Everything that comes out of the East isn't good. Does that make sense? Like, if you're thinking that that's all it takes, that's my point. It takes far more than that. If you're going to be building like a good game, if you're going to build a game that's like worth a darn, it's not just if you're a small team and you're not Western, it's going to be great. It's like I kept telling people, I was like, this, and what did I say? I said there are so many indie games, there are so many AA games that come out every single day, every single month that are terrible. At to work, I can earn 60 an hour. So yeah, that isn't great either. Oh, you guys talking about the marathon thing. Reminds me of the meme video. You sure about that? You sure about that? Yeah, I know. It's like, yeah, you sure about that? Like, you sure the game is like, you know, come on. The only people that thought the game was going to be good were fanboys who would now be claiming it as first party. No, I think that's an oversimplification. I thought Lost Soul Aside looked great. And then I played the demo and immediately warned people that it wasn't any good. Right? That's not being a fanboy. I thought it looked great. I thought they had the cool trailer with the weapon swapping that I thought looked great. I thought the vibe looked cool, the art style looked cool. It was very much inspired by Final Fantasy, and I thought that was fine. I did not once think that like, oh, this looks like trash. I was like, it looks fun. It looks like a good game. It looked like it was inspired by Final Fantasy and Devil May Cry. Listen, when I see trailers and I'm worried, I call it out. I did it with Mind's Eye. I did it with Redfall. I've done it with plenty of games. Plenty of games. You can tell from the trailer there's a problem. These people that are saying, oh, no, I knew from the beginning it was trash. I think can they receipt pull and show that they said that? You know? Trying to hear a project is a failure. I mean, I think you're getting a little bit ahead of yourself. I don't think saying it's a failure is founded. The Fist game did well. I think AI Limit did fine. And then there's a bunch of other games coming. This one did poorly. That's undeniable. But Fist, Forge, and Shadow, I think it did well. AI Limit did fine. There's Convaleria, there's Exilage, there's Daba, the Land of Waterscar. Awaken Astral Blade did fine. Yeah, Awaken Astral Blade's got a great score everywhere I've looked. Come on. You want to use one? I mean, come on. There's other games. Unending Dawn, there's the Godslayer, Brocade, Cladguard. There's a lot of games still to come from the China Hero Project. Not this game certainly hit some bad snags along the way. You know, getting completely rebooted in 2019 probably really hurt it. So, could we get to 200 likes on the video, though? We need 24 more likes. And we are going to shift gears here in just a second. China Hero Project is in phase 4. They've had a few games already. Yeah, they've already had a few games. Awaken Astral Blade, Fist, AI Limit. Like, they've had some games do perfectly fine. Like, smaller titles. Like, I don't... You know what I mean? I disagree. I love the game later. I mean, there's nothing really to disagree about. Lost Soul Aside's not doing well. Whether or not you agree with my summation of the game's quality is fine, but it's not doing well. User score is poor. I didn't mean to make that rhyme. The user score is not great, and seemingly the sales of the game did not do well either. It doesn't look like it did that strong anywhere on PlayStation or PC. I think that's okay to talk about. So I need a quick break. Guys, double check that it saved your like. The like count's not moving, and I know sometimes it does that weird thing. We're going to shift gears in a moment here. I'm going to show you how not to false start with the first Hollow Knight. I think a lot of people are going to be taking an interest in the first Hollow Knight this week in particular, because Silksong comes out in 3 days. And I want to kind of do a little bit of like an hour-long kind of like, hey, here's how to not have a bad time with this game right at launch. But I need a quick break, and I'll be right back, all right? All right. Can't hear myself. Okay. I always have to turn off mic monitoring whenever I do a stream with Madam, and then I put the headphones on, and I'm like, oh gosh, I can't hear anything. Okay. Okay. I'm at the Discord with a little announcement. Okay, I don't need to hit the members chat. All right, and then let me switch directories. YouTube, the link in chat is where we are going. Edit. Hollow Knight Beginner's Guide. Creator dashboard, stream manager. Okay. Member count. All right. All right, use the link in chat, guys. Thank you so much for checking out this video. This is going to be a Hollow Knight gameplay in 2025 video. And the reason I want to do this is I did this with Returnal and Death Stranding 1, two games I fall started with. I fall started with Hollow Knight. You might have fall started with Hollow Knight gameplay, and maybe you want to get into it right before Hollow Knight Silksong comes out. You'll notice right there, I've played for an hour. That's what I'm going to do for you today. I'm going to start a brand new save, and I'm going to show you sort of the Hollow Knight beginner's tips, or tips for beginners, so that you don't get frustrated and false start. There are two very important items to get, and I'm going to show you how to get those within the first hour. It will make a huge change. I'm going to end the previous stream and redirect folks over. Thank you guys